Martyrs of faith. The final days of the apostles. Imagine being called to a mission so grand that it changes the course of history forever. This was the reality for Jesus' apostles, Mary Magdalene included, as the apostle of apostles, who became the foundation of Christianity. The apostles were entrusted with spreading Jesus' teachings to the earth's far corners, but their mission came with great sacrifice. Have you ever wondered what happened to each of them? How did their unwavering faith shape their ultimate destinies? Today, we'll uncover the powerful stories of these men and the incredible ways they dedicated their lives to their calling. The apostles died in a variety of ways, including crucifixion, stoning, beheading, by being cut in half with a saw, other was skinned alive, another was dead after being dragged by horses through the streets, and others executed by the sword or spears. The Bible only mentions the deaths of two apostles, James, who was put to death by Herod Agrippa I, and Judas Iscariot, who committed suicide shortly after the death of Christ. The circumstances of the other apostles' deaths are mostly based on church tradition and legends. It is traditionally believed that John was the youngest of the apostles and survived all of them. He is said to have lived to old age, dying of natural causes, just like Mary Magdalene. Andrew, Peter's brother, shared his zeal for spreading the gospel. Known for introducing others to Jesus, Andrew's missionary efforts took him to far-off regions, including Greece, Asia Minor, and possibly as far as the Black Sea. In the village of Patras, Greece, Andrew was martyred on an X-shaped cross where he was hung alive for 2 days before die. This cross, now known as St. Andrew's Cross, became a lasting symbol of his faith and sacrifice. Tradition places his martyrdom on November 30th, 63 AD, under the empire of Nero. Bartholomew, also called Nathaniel, was known for his deep faith and missionary zeal. He traveled far to regions such as India, Armenia, Ethiopia, Iraq, and Iran, spreading the gospel in challenging environments. According to tradition, the apostle Bartholomew converted Polemius, king of Armenia, together with his wife and the majority of the people of Derbent, to Christianity. In revenge, Polemius's brother, Prince Astyages, ordered Bartholomew's execution. He was martyred and beheaded at Derbent, Azerbaijan, near Russia, after tearing off his skin. His unshakable faith serves as a testament to the lengths the apostles went to for their mission. James, the greater James, son of Zebedee and brother of John, was part of Jesus' inner circle. Along with Peter and John, he witnessed key moments like the Transfiguration and the agony in Gethsemane. James's boldness in preaching the gospel made him a target of persecution. Around 44 AD, near Palestine, Herod Agrippa ordered his execution by sword, making him the first apostle to be martyred. His death inspired others to remain steadfast in their faith despite the cost. James the Just. James was one of the brothers of Jesus. James led the church at Jerusalem until his violent death in 62 AD. James was killed by the order of the high priest Ananus. He summoned the Sanhedrin to judge James on the charges of having transgressed the law, thrown some 100 feet off a wall, done to him after he repeatedly refused to deny his faith in Jesus. He survived the fall and was beaten to death with clubs. James the Little picture. James the Little, a quiet yet unwavering pillar of faith, walking the dusty streets of Jerusalem, spreading the message of salvation. James the Little, often identified as the son of Alphaeus, played a significant role in the early church. Though lesser known than others, his influence was profound. Tradition holds that he remained in Jerusalem, serving as a leader of the Christian community. He was death by the Jews for challenging Jewish laws and for convincing some members of the Jewish community to convert to Christianity. He was martyred around 62 AD and sentenced to be stoned to death. Clement of Alexandria relates that James, after being beaten to death with a club, was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple. John the Beloved, John, James's brother and son of Zebedee, was known as the beloved disciple. He played a unique role in recording Jesus' teachings. contributing the Gospel of John, 3 epistles, and the prophetic book of Revelation. According to tradition, while still young, he was thrown alive into a cauldron of boiling oil but suffered no harm. John was the only apostle who dared to stand at the foot of the cross, and Jesus gave his mother into his care, John 19:26-27. Unlike his fellow apostles, John lived to old age. Emperor Domitian exiled him to Patmos, a small Greek island in the Aegean Sea. There, he received visions and wrote the book of Revelation, which became the foundation of Christian eschatology. He was later freed and returned to serve as Bishop of Edessa in Turkey. John is believed to have died of natural causes around 100 AD, leaving behind a profound legacy of love and truth. Judas Iscariot reflects on the sorrowful tale of Judas Iscariot, whose betrayal led to the fulfillment of prophecy. Judas Iscariot's story is one of the most tragic in the Bible. Chosen as one of the 12, he walked closely with Jesus, witnessing his miracles and hearing his teachings. Yet, Judas betrayed his master for 30 pieces of silver, leading the authorities to arrest Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Overcome with remorse, Judas returned the silver and confessed his betrayal to the religious leaders. Consumed by guilt and despair, he took his own life by hanging. Jude Thaddeus Jude, also known as Thaddeus, was a passionate advocate for the faith. His ministry brought him to regions such as Iran, Iraq, and Armenia, where he courageously preached the gospel. For his unwavering dedication to Christ, Jude was martyred, likely clubbed, and then crucified in 72 AD at city of Edessa, Turkey. Luke the physician wrote the Gospel of Luke and the Acts. The composition of the writings, as well as the range of vocabulary used, indicate that the author was an educated man. Although Luke is considered likely to have been a Gentile Christian, some scholars believe him to have been a Hellenized Jew and didn't follow all the Jewish practices such as circumcision. Luke died at age 84 in Boeotia, Greece, by being hanged on an olive tree after facing persecution for his preaching of Christianity. His tomb was located in Thebes, Greece, whence his relics were transferred to Constantinople in the year 357 AD. Mark, the evangelist Mark, one of the 4 evangelists, was born in Cyrene, currently Libya. He traveled with Barnabas and Paul on many religious missions, during which he founded the Church of Alexandria, which was one of the 5 most important sees of early Christianity. Coptic tradition holds that Mark hosted the apostles in his house after Jesus' death, that the resurrected Jesus came to Mark's house, John 20, and that the Holy Spirit descended on the disciples at Pentecost in the same house. When Mark returned from one of his missions to Alexandria, Egypt, the pagans of the city resented his efforts to turn the Alexandrians away from the worship of their traditional gods. In 68 AD, they placed a rope around his neck and dragged him with horses through the streets of Alexandria until he was dead. Mary Magdalene, the Apostle of the Apostles. The details surrounding Mary Magdalene's death are not explicitly recorded in historical or biblical accounts, leading to various traditions and interpretations. Here's an overview of how, when, and where she is traditionally believed to have died. Most traditions hold that Mary Magdalene died a natural death after a life dedicated to preaching and penance. The exact date of her death is unknown, but it is believed to have occurred in the late 1st century AD. Several traditions provide different locations where she died. Ephesus, modern-day Turkey. Some Christian traditions suggest that she accompanied the Apostle John to Ephesus, where she lived out her later years and passed away. Southern France. According to a strong Western Christian tradition, Mary Magdalene traveled to Provence, preached the gospel, and spent her last years in solitude in a cave known as La Sainte Baume. She is said to have died there and was buried in the nearby town of Saint-Maximin-la Sainte Baume, where a basilica now bears her name, Jerusalem or Palestine. Some traditions propose she stayed in the Holy Land, continuing her ministry and dying there. Mary Magdalene's legacy as a close follower of Jesus and the apostle to the apostles lives on regardless of the specific details of her death. Her life and presumed locations of her death remain points of pilgrimage and deep spiritual reflection. Matthew Levi Matthew, also known as Levi, a former tax collector, transformed into a devoted apostle after being called by Jesus under a compelling invitation, "Follow me." His unique background gave him a deep understanding of human redemption. In ancient Israel, tax collectors were viewed as collaborators with the Roman regime. This placed them at the margins of society, labeled as sinners and outcasts. Matthew brought the gospel to Ethiopia and Persia, where he faced fierce opposition. Accounts suggest he was martyred about 60 AD in Ethiopia for being staked and speared to the ground as he fearlessly proclaimed the good news to the people and questioned the morals of the king. Matthias, chosen to replace Judas Iscariot, took on the immense responsibility of continuing the mission of the 12. He is believed to have preached in Ethiopia and possibly the regions around the Caspian Sea. Tradition holds that he was martyred by crucifixion or being beheaded for his steadfast proclamation of the gospel. Paul of Tarsus, also known as Saul, was born Jew in Tarsus, Turkey. He was trained as a rabbi, but earned his living as a tent maker. As a zealous Pharisee, he persecuted the first Christians, entering every house and dragging off men and women and delivering them to prison. When he was going to Damascus in order to capture more Christians, a vision of Jesus converted him to Christianity. Paul was not one of the 12 apostles selected by Jesus during his public ministry, but he is commonly called the Apostle to the Gentiles. 13 epistles in the New Testament are attributed to Paul, but modern scholars dispute his authorship of 7 of them. In Acts, 3 major journeys of Paul are recorded, all of which took place in the region that today belongs to Macedonia, Greece, and Turkey. During these journeys, Paul, in addition to spreading Christianity, performed a series of miracles, such as healings and exorcisms. Even historians debate the exact date or manner in which Paul died, but it is almost accepted that he was martyred in Rome. Based on historical events, it is likely that Paul was beheaded, possibly around the same time that Peter was crucified. Peter Simon the Rock Peter, also known as Simon, was a fisherman by trade before becoming one of Jesus' closest apostles. His fiery passion and deep faith earned him the nickname of the Rock. Imagine Peter stepping forward boldly, knowing his journey would take him to the heart of the Roman Empire. As he spread the gospel across Judea and beyond, Peter faced intense persecution, including imprisonment and beatings. Peter's journey eventually led him to Rome, the epicenter of the ancient world. There, he continued to preach despite mounting threats. Around 64 AD, during Emperor Nero's reign, Peter was arrested and condemned to death. Tradition tells us that he requested to be crucified upside down, considering himself unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. On Peter's tomb, the Vatican Basilica was built. Philip was a Galilean, born in Bethsaida, John 1:44. His name is of Greek origin, Philippos, which means lover of horses. Philip brought the gospel to Asia Minor, particularly in Hierapolis, a Hellenic city located in present-day Turkey. Known for his boldness, Philip confronted local leaders who opposed his teachings. According to tradition, Philip exercised his ministry in Palestine, Greece, Asia Minor, and Phrygia, Turkey. Philip said to have been tortured, impaled by iron, hooks in his ankles, and hung upside down to die in Heliopolis, Egypt in the year 54 AD. Simon the Zealot. Simon the Zealot, known for his intense devotion, traveled extensively to spread the gospel. His journeys took him to regions like Jordan, Persia, and North Africa. Historical accounts suggest he was martyred, potentially by being crucified and his body sawn in half in Roman Britain in 74 AD for refusing to renounce his faith. Thomas Didymus Thomas is the ancient Aramaic word for twin, as Didymus is the ancient Greek word for twin. There are some church traditions that he had a twin sister who died at 9 years. Think about the courage it took for Thomas to travel to the distant lands of India where the gospel had never been heard. Thomas is often remembered as Doubting Thomas because he asked to touch Jesus and thus be certain that he had risen. After witnessing the resurrected Christ, his faith became unshakable. Thomas experienced a transformation that led him to become one of the most adventurous missionaries. He traveled to India, establishing Christian communities that trace their origins to his ministry. In Chennai, formerly called Madras, in the south of India, Thomas faced martyrdom when he was pierced with spears by local authorities around 72 AD.
The legacy of the apostles. Think of these apostles' impact on the world and how their sacrifices paved the way for billions to follow their faith. The apostles' courage and devotion continue to inspire believers around the globe. Despite their trials and persecutions, their unwavering faith transformed them into vessels of God's love and truth. As you reflect on their lives, ask yourself, how far would you go to stand for your faith? What legacy of love and devotion are you leaving behind? Let us honor their sacrifices by living with the same boldness and commitment to the truth. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel. The Bible was right, and share your thoughts in the comments. How do the apostles' lives inspire your faith journey? Let us know below.